Yo, it's Guido. DBFM. We're going to answer the question, is it better to have a MiG behind you than no MiG at all? There he is. One MiG 29S at my 6 o'clock. More like my 7 o'clock. I was giving him missiles, but I'm only about 50% in defending that. I don't know what kind of dice roll it uses, but the idle break flare, even against the AA-10, or AA-8, I mean, was not a 100%. So we will do the missile defense, but I'm tired of getting shot down by the missile, even though I'm idle flaring and all that good stuff. So we're going to do a idle left-hand brake flare. You can see we've moved over to the Marianas map, the reason being that the AI has a really tough time with terrain. So the Nellis map has a lot of hills and mountains, and it was giving the AI some trouble. It will still have some trouble down at sea level, and it tends to avoid that, but you'll notice it'll flat plate. We'll watch that happen probably if we can get down to the floor. DBFM. So I am flying DBFM, defensive BFM. The goal for this is to not get shot and to get to the floor and neutralize or reverse. So that's the general goal. This will go much further, more than likely, provided I don't get immediately shot down, than we would do in a training event. If I got to the floor and I had neutralized and the offender was not fairly quickly getting into a gunshot, it would be a knock it off and we'd reset the thing back up because the goal would have been achieved. The assumption is that the offending aircraft will get a gunshot. So you're doing really well in defensive BFM with a guy starting right behind you to get to the floor and neutralize. If you can reverse, that's incredibly good, and more than, well, not more than likely, definitely the offender has made a huge BFM error. So you should be able to, with that kind of starting setup right there, all else being equal aircraft roughly, you should be able to get a gunshot. So this guy should get in here and get some gunshots. It's the AI, so as I have said multiple times, let's not get too excited. It is the AI. But we're going to break left, flare, idle, and then we'll go into max AB, and I'll talk about it as we go. All right, here we go. Idle, and we immediately over G, so that's awesome. All right, so he is not shooting us, so we will go back to max AB. Okay, so nose down a little bit. He's probably thinking about coming in for another shot, so we're going to tighten this thing up here. And because he's so tight, we're going to do some rudder action here on him. Going to make sure we don't bury our nose, though. That's the trick with the rudder. Okay. Trying to make the angles look bad for him, right? All right. Getting close to the floor, so we're going to bail out of that. We're going to grab some knots. We have to watch because he's going to have better energy than us. It takes a while to get your energy back as you're doing the rudder thing. And pretty quickly we're going to see his nose come around. He's probably going to try a gunshot. So we're going to tighten down here to get his nose to come off. Go lag. There it goes. All right, very good. We are at 6,000 feet, getting down towards the floor. He's headed back to lag. So he's going to align the turn circle a little bit. He might have another opportunity here for a gunshot. Let's not let our air... All right, yep, here comes his nose. We'll tighten down a bit here. Might have to... Here. All right, there we go. Thought he might turn the gun on, but he didn't. There is immediate feedback from the gun in DCS. You can see it shooting you. Okay, this is another tighten down situation. We were right at the floor. Force his nose off. All right, back off the G. That'll work. We'll get the knots back, and that's a pretty good result defensive BFM wise. We got to the floor, he didn't shoot us, and now we got him kind of stuck back there in lag. It looks like he might want to try to bring his nose around again. We'll just keep fighting. Watch his nose. We're looking for that plan for him as he tries to go to lead. There he goes to lag. And this is working out nicely for us because we're starting to win. Oh, he's reversed. I missed that. There he goes. Is he going to reverse again? He might. We got to watch our... Yep, he's going to come back around. All right, that's fine. Terrible. But we got a piece of him. Okay, we'll just stay offensive on him. That worked out nicely for us. Maybe a few more hits. Definitely going offensive on this guy. And he ejects. Success, my friends. Success. That's about as good a result from a defensive BFM setup as you can get. As I stated, though, in a training mission, more than likely, once we got to the floor and the guy wasn't in a gun whiz, i.e. about a 4 aspect in the control zone back there, 4 aspects somewhere between, say, trying to remember these numbers, 2,500 to 4,500 feet behind me, it would have been a knock it off, because the goal would have been achieved by the defender of not being shot going downhill. Now, we'll go and take a look at TAC view and see if I indeed did not get shot. I have had a couple of these where I didn't think I'd been hit, but you go to TAC view and all of a sudden it shows a bullet or two struck you, so you took a little bit of battle damage right there. But that actually worked out really nicely for us. Where's the island? There it is. So we'll head on back, and we even have some gas. We got 9,000 pounds, so fantastic. Let's go take a look at TAC view for the DBFM. Or let's take a look at TAC view. We've got the 2 fighters called up, the MiG in the back, the F-15 me in the front. Remember, this is AI. The setup's about a 3-4 aspect back here, both going the same way, same day. I'm going to break into them. We would be turning, setting up a DBFM setup like this, but I can't talk the AI into it. He's not listening. We've got the telemetry for the Eagle over here, and for the MiG, we can take a look at airspeeds, headings, the calibrated airspeed indicated, the Mach, just all these different things, angle off, all that good stuff. So I'm going to idle brake into the MiG-29 right there, and we're off to the races. So let's see what the MiG does. There's my idle brake. I touch 8.3 Gs or so. Sitting at 6 Gs, I put about 90 degrees on him, and the AI just points. That's a bad plan. He either needed to pull out in front and take a gunshot, or go to lag and start the 2-circle fight from there. Look for the control zone later. So I've taken my control zone, which he was more or less in, and put it out over here. So now the control zone is back here, and he needs to fly to that control zone so he can control the BFM. Pointing at me does nothing. He's neither shooting, and he's collapsing range, and he is accepting the angles that I'm building. So just bad BFM from the AI right there. We'll head on downhill. Not too bad in terms of giving up a lot of altitude there. I do dump my nose a bit. You can see I'm doing 304 knots. He's got 432, so he can do a brake turn here and fix some of his issues if you want. So let's see what the Bandit does. About a 4G turn, does use some of the energy. You can see that with the extra energy he has, a little bit of altitude over me, but not too bad now, 400 feet. Similar G, but he's still in that somewhat offensive position. Now, it looks a little better than it is because I am about right here into a full left boot full of rudder, and I'm just trying to make the angles look bad. I'm not really marching around the turn circle doing that. I'm kind of spinning in place. I mean, I am moving around the turn circle a little bit, but it's making the angles look much worse to him, although it is not doing much in terms of my energy, nor marching around or rating around the turn circle. So I'm going to call it spinning in place. I'm not spinning in place. I still have forward momentum, and I have a lot of downward momentum, but it's making it look worse than it is, because eventually I have to come off the rudder. I can't continue to do that because the ground, or in this case, the water, is going to show up. So it looks pretty good. Got hung up there, then you start to see it rotate. A little over rotation, look at that. So my lift vector actually went well below the horizon. My nose dumped, which is going to give him a little bit of altitude right there. But we're pretty similar altitude. He's at 326, I'm at 261 for airspeed. So he's got a bit of airspeed on me. Just riding around back there looking to get the control zone. The other thing about the rudder is that you spin, you're not spinning, but as you move your nose, your control zone continues to move across, that he's got to drive to it. This is not a bad plan for him to ride high and keep his airspeed up, as long as he doesn't allow the heading angles to get too much, because if it starts to approach a high heading crossing angle, I'm going to bail out of that and cause him angle issues that he's going to have to solve. As long as he keeps his energy and some altitude, he can actually solve that pretty easily by following me downhill. So this is not a bad plan. The other plan is to follow with the rudder in the same way and do a better floor transition. So there's two ways to do that. The way he's doing it, you do have to be careful about if the guy doing the rudder gets a lot of angles, if he's really good at it and he keeps you nice and tight so you're just kind of riding on top. Once he gets, 180 out, he's going to zing, right? He's going to unload and go, and now you have to solve that problem. Hopefully you've got the altitude and the airspeed to do so. You should, but you do have to be careful about him really just getting underneath and then just making a break for it. So we'll continue around this circle. I don't have many. There, we got to make this. There we go. So those are the circle indicators, or the ribbons. So that's the path that the two fighters are carving through space. You can see the circles are pretty aligned, and he's actually starting 293. He's got about, math in public, 50, 60 more knots than I do. And he's starting to march around and head towards my control zone, which is now over and about this area right here. Right, so that's where he wants to try to get. We are at 11,000 ASL above sea level, so we only have 10,000 feet more to go before we have to do some kind of floor transition and start worrying about the floor. He comes off the G a bit, grabs a little more airspeed, but no, he's still kind of carving around at 3.2, just accepting it. He's still in an offensive position, though. So good on the AI. He's coming around. I've done what I can with the rudder. I'm at 8,000 feet. I have to stop. You have to be very careful with the floor transitions doing the rudder, using the rudder like that, because if you hold on to it too long, by the time you let go of the rudder and unload the jet, you have a lot of sink rate. You might still hit the ground, or you're going to have to flat plate, which will then make your line go straight and allow the Bandit to swing around and easily get into your control zone. So you have to plan for that somewhere between 5 to 8,000 feet above the floor. In this case, we're in DCS, so we're going to use the no kidding water as the floor. In training, it would be 5 or 10,000 feet. And if you went through it, then that's a floor kill and you lose that engagement. All right. In DCS, if you hit the water and blow up, then splash, then blow up, crash, whatever you want to call it, then you lose the engagement. So he's driving around. He's got 300 knots. I'm now at 337, so I'm beating him. I'm doing a little bit better job in the floor transition. Look at those nice angles that I've been able to create. Remember where he started, right? He was just about 3 aspect off, and I've got him about 90 out now. Maybe a little less based on his nose position right here. But we'll see how that floor transition goes because it's starting to open up. I'm grabbing some speed. Now notice he's not threatening me. So what I can do with this situation right here, I need to keep turning. I need to keep raiding around the circle in my 2-circle fight. But because his nose is not threatening, I can grab some knots. So it's going to depend on what airplane you're flying in DCS. They all have slightly different models. The Eagle happens to fly pretty close to the actual Eagle, so I have a good idea of the numbers I'm looking for. So if you're flying the Viper, the 18, some of these other things, you got to know what those are. So look up the EM diagrams or do your Google foo and find out what the best rate speed is in DCS for that airplane. The Eagle's fairly close, so it happens to be what I use, about 420 to 440. With most of the jets, there is a point at which, generally for any of the jets that have a better than a 1-to-1 thrust ratio, which happens to be the Eagle and the F-16, and it's to some extent the F-18, but the F-18, sometimes the pull limiter gets in the way. But you've got there where you start raging around and you can't even pull enough to get the energy off. You have to throttle modulate to not continue to gain airspeed. For the Eagle, it's 440 to 420. If you get to 450 or above, it gets to a point especially low with the performance of the jet in DCS that if you're in max AB, you can't possibly pull the knots off and you're going to continue to accelerate. And what's going to also happen there is your circle's going to get huge. Break. In gamer DCS BFM, a lot of people will run around over-G'ing all the way, just short of tearing the wings off of the jet. That does change some of those numbers a little bit. So you will see people, when you're watching BFM with people just doing gamer BFM, they might get to 550, 560 and do this bat turn back in to go after people. So it does change things a little bit. But if you're looking to not over G, over G, over G, and fly it more within the limits of the aircraft, that 420 to 440 is the way to go. And it does happen to have the nice, tightest circle you can get and the best rate you can get. The 550 thing is more for extending and turning back into people and giving them all kinds of angles to solve. And it works for the gamer side of the house. So, you know, we have a bit of a mix here with what I'm doing, but I'm aiming more towards the more realistic BFM side. And it does happen to actually work out that the rate and radius, the radius is the smallest and the rate is the best for the Eagle around 420 to 440. That's just how it is, both in DCS and real world. But gamer BFM, you may not want to be doing that. This is pretty cool though. You can start to see the circles got aligned, and then the Bandit is finally making a move. All right, so you can see this clearly right here. Here's my circle, and they were pretty close right here, but about this point, he pulled some G's right here, added some G to his jet, and now he is coming around and looking to get into lead fire and threaten my jet. What I have to do here is tighten down, which means to pull into him, put the lift vector, which is straight out my cranium, orient that right onto his jet, and then pull straight into him so that I force his nose off, and I want his nose to go to lag, which is behind me, and go outside of my turn circle right here. Now, I think I mentioned it in the video here. This is a very painful rate fight. I am pulling 7.8 Gs continuously down at sea level at 434 knots. You really don't have a whole lot of time, realistically, as a fighter pilot, pulling 7.8 Gs. You know, that should be transitory. You really don't want to be down there grunting around at 8 Gs for several circles. That you're not going to be able to do it. Some people can do it a little longer than other people, but you're going to have some limited capability to do that. But, you know, it's DCS, so I can be super pilot and rage around this circle at 8 Gs for quite a while. But I think what we might see is the Bandit will go outside of my turn circle. There's the tighten down. See how my circle just gets smaller, and I've used some energy. I went from that 330 down to 392, pulled those G's, and now I'm trying to force his nose off. Now, his nose never got in lead. Remember, if you're going to shoot someone, you got to have range, you have to be in plane, and you have to have lead. In plane is arguable. The bullets need to be in his plane. Ideally, for a good saddled shot, you want to be in his same plane of motion. But, of course, you can do snaps and all that kind of stuff, not anywhere near really his plane of motion. As long as the bullets go through his plane of motion, then they may have a chance of intercepting and hitting. But what we're trying to do is get in range, in plane, in lead. He's pretty well in range. He's definitely at 2300. He's in range. He's in plane. He doesn't have any lead fire, right? The bullets go this way. They're going to go behind me. There's no way that those are going to catch me at this moment. Now, after I tightened down and I saw his nose go to lag, which means as I'm looking behind him, I can see him now driving back behind me. I'm going to come off, and you'll see me grab some more knots. Because I went down to, what, 390 or so, and now I'm going to get right back into that 420. But this is where it gets dangerous. His nose will naturally, with misaligned turn circles, and the fact that I grabbed some knots right there for a little bit, he's going to naturally have his nose come back around. He just kept pulling at 302 knots. While I extended a bit right here and got some knots back. So maybe a little bit of a mistake. Potentially I could have kept a bit of a tighter turn, maybe not let it get all the way to 446. And now I'm going to have to use those to tighten down. So I tighten down again, and because I'm seeing his nose, and it doesn't even really threaten me. So I tighten down just enough to make sure his nose doesn't get in lead and push him back into lag. There we go. And that looks a lot better. As a matter of fact, he's now floor saving, which we discussed at the very beginning of the video. You see how he's now rolled out and his line is straight, and he's, at least for the moment, he's had to flat plate and head up north because he didn't want to hit the ground. So I'm cruising around at 396. He's at 357 going straight. Look how he's carved around the inside of my circle. He threatened me, but he never really had a whiz. He didn't have his nose out in lead. So I was able to tighten it down and force his nose into lag. And now I'm in pretty good shape. Consider where we started, right at the top. We were both going the same way. He was in this relative position, but he was 90, 120 degrees, had 120 degrees more on me. I mean, he was pointing in the same direction I am. Now he's headed off this way. So this has been a victory for me defensively to push him off that far. We'll go out to the outside of the turn circles. I'm going to grab some knots again. And now look, he just did another one of those little floor saves right there because their AI is not too clever. And this is really getting fairly neutral right here. This is beautiful. It's exactly what you want to see. All right, massive mistake by the AI right here. I don't really know why it does that, but it's AI, so there you go. Obviously, reversing your turn was the worst possible thing to do. All this is turning room from me to him. Turning room is that's room I can use that he cannot, at least right now. He'd have to turn all the way back around to use this room, or reverse back again and go back left to try to use it. He really needed to just keep that two-circle fight going, but the AI is the AI, and it makes its own strange decisions. So BFM error, you know, you could real world go, oh, he lost sight, or he's trying to get away, or whatever the case may be. You take advantage. You have to fly the fight in relation to the bandit. So I'll just come carving around here. Now he's pulling 6Gs defensively, trying to break into me. Good job with the flares. I try to make any kind of gunshot I might take difficult right here and get me out of sequence. Took a shot. We'll break back with him. Still in an offensive position. He comes back, attempting the old guns jinx. Again, not a great idea. He'd already spit me out. He needed to continue around like I was doing earlier, but he's doing AI things, flopping around in front of me, giving me gunshots. And we slap him there. He's going to reverse the other way. And now I've turned it into an offensive position, saddling up into the control zone. There we go. Put another few on him. Hit him again. I think one more potentially. And dead. So there you go. Not a bad result for a defensive BFM. It went well further, as I noted, than it would have gone in reality in, say, a training environment. We would have knocked that off, climbed back up, and done another one. That way you can get 3 of those, maybe 4, usually about 3, with a clean jet out there. I'm also not carrying any CATMs or missiles or anything. These are totally 2 clean aircraft, so that does change things a little bit. But again, it's DCS, and it's just that's a good example of BFM. 2-circle to neutralizing the bandit at the floor and then going offensive. That was a lot of fun, but also cool to get out TAC view and check out some of the things you can do with it. It's very interesting. I was wondering if I might see something different here than I didn't expect, but not really. That was more or less what I thought he was doing. I don't know why the bandit reverses, to be quite honest, but take that. It's DCS, so take it and run. Take it and run. All right, guys, that's all I've got. Hope you guys have a good one. You got any questions or comments, go ahead and chuck them down in the comments down there. That's all I've got. We will see ya.